when can you afford to retire? Or looking at it another way, how much do you need to have in your pension, in savings and any investments to be able to stop work, to retire and live your ideal lifestyle when you want to? I'm Andrew Neligan, and in this video I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide to help you answer those very questions. All you're going to need is a pen and paper or a spreadsheet that I'll put in the description to this video for you to download, and a calculator. So let's get to it. What we've got here is a spreadsheet I've put together that will help you go through the various items of your lifestyle, your expenditure, to look at where your costs lie. So you go through your bank statements and your credit card statements and look at your direct debits and standing orders, and you can use that information to populate this spreadsheet. Or if you prefer, you can do it on a back of an envelope with a pen, but this gives you all the categories you might need. Now, there's different ways you can use this spreadsheet. If you just want to simply itemize what your current expenditure is and then use that as an assumption of what your future expenditure will be, you can just use this current annual spend column here, and you can see I've pre-populated it. You can then, if you want to go a step further and see if where you're spending your money is consistent to those parts of your life which are important to your priorities and your values, and then see if there's any contradictions, any areas of your life where you're spending money but you could actually be using it better because it's not consistent with what you want your life to look like, so not consistent with your priorities or your values. And then you can see how much you're giving away in potential returns in the future by spending money on areas that are not important to you. So look at your spending now, see what it is, look to where you're spending money that is important to you and is consistent, and in areas which isn't important to you is inconsistent with your values and your priorities. So let's have a look at it. So you can see the first section is essential expenditure. As I said, I've pre-populated it for you here. Not all of them will be relevant, so you just leave them blank where they don't apply to you. And what I've done then is, again, just a bit of a Blue Peter job. Here's what I've done earlier of looking at areas where, this is essential expenditure is always going to be important to us, so we'll map it across. And then we look at planning for the future. Are you making pension contributions already, or ISA contributions? Any other savings you can populate here. If you've got dependent children, or perhaps children at university or fresh out of university, you're still funding their lifestyle to some extent, you can add that in here. And look at the lifestyle costs, and this might be the area where you find you're spending money on things that don't tally up with how you want your life to be. You've maybe got some direct debits that you've uncovered that are going out you'd forgotten about. You can put those in here. And same with the discretionary or luxury spending. So what I've done here, for example, on clothing, just pick random numbers, said 4,000 a year. You might see that's a huge amount to spend, or not much at all, where it's unique to all of us. But what I've said here, currently spending £4,000 a year on clothes. Bit of an extreme difference, but I said, well, actually, we should only be spending £400. So we've got £3,600 we're spending that we don't value. And the same with eating out and socializing, shopping, other personal expenses, and holidays as well. So go through those columns and populate them as fit to your situation. And then what we'll get at the bottom is a grand total. So what you're spending in your current lifestyle, if you're only going to spend in line with what your values are, what your priorities are, that's what that column total will be. And then any superfluous or extra money you're spending that could be put to better use. And then this sum here, what you can do is that you can see it populated up in this cell here, and you can say, okay, well, we're spending this extra money that we don't need to be. I want to retire in a number of years, so here I said 5 years. If we put that money to better use, how much higher returns might we get from that money? And that's what this little table does here. So if we got an extra 1% a year on our money, this is what 28,600 could be over 5 years, all the way up to if we invested it and got a 7% return. So a range of numbers. Obviously these figures aren't guaranteed. It's a simple calculation just to give you an idea of how much money you're giving away and how it could be better used to help you achieve financial independence, financial security in the future if you were spending it more in line with your priorities. So that's one part of your spreadsheet. And now what we can do is take those figures and say, if I know that my annual expenditure, my ideal expenditure is however much a year, let's use this figure at the bottom, let's say it's £58,000, let's round it down. How much do I need in my personal wealth, so pensions and savings and investments, that's going to support me for the rest of my life and provide me with that £58,000 a year? And that's where our calculator comes in. So you can do this on your phone, a physical calculator if you have one. I'm just using the Windows one here. What you'll need to do is set it to scientific. So if you don't know how to do that, just click on the burger menu there and choose scientific. And so what we're going to do is work out what the future value of £58,000 a year is for a start, because we need to allow for inflation, because over the years inflation will reduce the purchasing power of our money. So we need to make sure that we can maintain that purchasing power so we can maintain our desired lifestyle. Now, inflation going forward, we have to make an assumption for. We don't know what it will be. Recording this in 2024, so we're coming out of that period of really high inflation we had since 2022 and 2023. The previous period of really high inflation was in the early 70s, but in the interim period, long-term inflation value averaged around 3% a year. So when I do financial planning for my clients, that's my long-term inflation assumption. So that's what I'm going to use today. So what we'll do is put into our calculator 58,000, and then we need to increase that, work out what £58,000 will be in the future when we plan to retire and are reliant on our personal resources rather than income that we're getting from employment or self-employment, however you work. So what we need to do is increase £58,000 by 3%. And in my example earlier, I said I want to retire in 5 years. So we need to know what that £58,000 will be in 5 years' time, allowing for inflation. So we do 58,000 times 1.03 for 3%. And then we need to use this X to the Y button if you think back to your school maths days. And here we put in 5 for the period of time. So in 5 years' time, the equivalent of 58,000 today, inflating at 3% a year, is £67,237. So that is what the cost of our future lifestyle will be in today's terms. Now what we need to do is think about, well, you might have other sources of income in retirement which will help fund that income need. You might have state pension available into the future, depending on your age now, when it will be payable. The current state pension is around about 11,500 if you've got the full entitlement. You might have rental income that you're receiving and has been a consistent level of income for you, which you can take off for that figure because that will help fund it. With rental income, you've also always got to be aware of periods of time when you might not have tenants, so you won't have that income coming in. You might be fortunate enough to have the final salary, defined benefit pension payable to you in retirement, whether that be from 60, 65, 66, 67, depends on the scheme. But you can be able to take that annual figure off your income need as well. So you'll be built, depending on what your financial situation is and sources of income in retirement, you'll be able to cover a lot of that lifestyle need through income sources. So let's just assume for now you haven't got a defined benefit pension, you haven't got rental income, but you have got a state pension payable at some point in the future. Now, when that's payable will depend on when your retirement is and how long you might have a gap between that starting. But let's say for now, keep it simple. Let's say that you've got it available to you now. So we'll take £11,500 off this. So that means you need to find £55,737 from somewhere, from your pensions, your ISAs, your savings, other investments, to provide you enough income in retirement. Now, what we don't want to do, what we've got to be mindful of in retirement, is taking too much money out of your pot too soon and running it out, so you end up with more life than you have money. In other words, you'll get to a point in your life where the money's gone and you're just reliant on whatever state pension you're entitled to. That's not a good position to be in. It means you'll be living a life that probably is not one you expected in retirement, and having to cut your cloth accordingly. There's a rule of thumb guide that we use in financial planning and retirement planning called the 4% rule. It's not perfect, but it's a rule of thumb to help you work out what a sustainable withdrawal rate from primarily from your pension, but other sources, to make sure that whatever happens in the investment markets, assuming your investment, you keep your pension fund invested, it will provide you with that sustainable income for the rest of your life. Because what we know is with investing is we can go through things like global pandemics and wars and banking crises, which means markets can fall by a third, 40% in extreme times, like the depression, that they've fell by 50%. So we need to know whatever you go through in terms of how your pension and investments are invested, you can make sure you're not withdrawing too much to run that pension fund or the investments down too soon. And that sustainable withdrawal rate is around 4%. Depends on the years you use, but looking at long-term returns, it's around about 4%. So what we need to do is find out what £55,737 is 4% of, to give us a target pot from which we can withdraw. So therefore, if we divide £55,737 by 4%, that'll give us a figure of 1.39, let's call it 1.4 million. So this is saying, to provide us with that £58,000 in today's terms for the rest of our life, if we're going to take a 4% withdrawal, we need a pot of about £1.4 million to know that we'll have enough. Now that might be a big scary number. It is so dependent upon what the cost of your lifestyle is. That's going to be the biggest variable of how much money you need in retirement to be financially secure and financially independent. If your lifestyle is much lower, naturally you'll need a smaller pot to withdraw from. You might be able to take more than 4% from it, so therefore your pot doesn't have to be as big. But as I said, that's the long-term average rule of thumb sustainable withdrawal rate. So that's everything I wanted to cover in this. Hopefully it's been helpful. If you want this spreadsheet, look in the description section where there'll be a link where you can download it. If you like this video, please do click on the like button. If you've got any views, opinions, experiences, please do comment. If you want to receive more videos as and when I upload them to YouTube, please do subscribe. And know more about what I do and how I help my clients, please do visit my website, neliganfinancial.co.uk. That's NELIGAN financial.co.uk. And there'll be a link to that in the description too. But I hope this was of interest to you.